Hi, and welcome to Storytime. I'm Kimberlyn from Life's Work Yoga, and it's midday on Tuesday. But maybe you, like me, are suffering a little discombobulation this week, having had a long weekend. And I want to come back to that for a minute because not every one of us was able to enjoy some extra time of personal care, self-care, maybe family time, connection, or travel. The holiday, Memorial Day, is intended obviously to honor those who have given the greatest sacrifice of their lives in service to our nation. And yet, the application of this holiday, this 3-day extra long weekend, is often about carving out more time to do the things that we just can't fit into our regular weekend or our regular day. Well, unfortunately, that often means that we save play for these special weekends. And I want to advocate that as someone who is committed to intentional self-care, one of the components of wise self-care is intentionally planning for and being open to spontaneous opportunities for play. Now, I'm holding a book today, and it's written by Stuart Brown, and it is entitled Play. I mean, it's not rocket science, right? But the subtitle says, How It Shapes the Brain, Opens the Imagination, and Invigorates the Soul. As a child, no one had to teach me how to play. And yet that's not entirely true either, because we do learn play by engaging in the experiment. And much like the practice of yoga, it is an experience in process. By engaging in the act of play, we learn more about how to play. So I'm curious whether or not you have an intimate relationship with play. If you have an intimate relationship for doing something to cultivate not an end result, but a process of being in the moment, an experience of touching inspiration and joy. Now, Stuart Brown is an MD. He's a researcher. He's a psychiatrist, and a clinical researcher. He is also the founder of the National Institute of Play. And really what he says is that play is fun. I'm reading from the back cover. But it is anything but trivial. It is a basic biological drive as integral to our health as sleep or nutrition. I call it an inspiration checkup, right? When I work with a potential new client, it's a free service that is just really an opportunity for you and me to connect, to talk about whether or not you're living intimately with inspiration. If you've ever had an oil change, you know the importance of regular car maintenance. But inspiration is the life force. It's the prana, it's the chi, the energy that moves through us. And play is one of the practices. In fact, I teach 10 different practices that all help us to cultivate living intimately with inspiration, or living in happiness and joy. And play, making an intentional commitment and staying open to the potential, to the possibility, to the spontaneity of play is, in fact, a practice that we can learn, even in our older years. He says that when we play, we are open to possibility and the sparks of new insight. Play, defined as any kind of purposeless, all-consuming, restorative activity, is the single most significant factor in determining our success and happiness. Now, I personally don't see a big distinction between success and happiness. To me, they are one and the same. But I do recognize that how we define success does make a difference. In other words, many years in my earlier life, success was about achievement. Success was about accomplishment. Success was about getting shit done. And I still have a little of that workaholic nature that shows up in my day-to-day, particularly, ironically, when I have neglected my proactive self-care routines, the things that help keep me intimate with inspiration, aligned in my body, mind, and my spirit, and engaged in living my best life. So when that happens, and I become a little more driven, a little more workaholic nature showing up, it's important for me to have the intentional practices of play on my calendar, in my schedule. And the reason for that is because, honestly, I don't trust myself to give myself the play that I know that I need when I'm not optimizing at my best. Some of us, we make poor decisions about what we eat, or who we hang out with, or the manner in which we frame our world. We all have these kind of self-preservation habits that at one time served us, protected us, kept us safe or in a sense of control. And yet the more we cultivate a balanced life, an abundant mindset of embracing all that life has to offer, the more that we can step away from those defensive practices and embrace the open-ended, the heart-expanding practices, and play is one of them. Now, play is best when we can do it with others, but that's not to say that we are dependent on others. In fact, play, self-play, and self-soothing techniques of doing something that is for the enjoyment is one of the strategies that helped me survive this past year of the COVID quarantine and the isolation and the distancing experience, is that knowing that that is in my control. It could be something as simple, maybe you already know this about me, but I love to laugh. And I practice laughter as a yoga intention. Now, is it yoga? Yeah, because it's all yoga, and it's a practice of cultivating prana and life force. It's also yoga because laughter is founded in breath. Breath being just one of the 3 tools that yoga gives us practices to tickle. Breathing, moving, resting. Breathing being the energetic body, movement being the physical anatomical body, and rest being the quieting of the mind, the settling of the energy that requires activation, right? So we use these tools, body, breath, and mind, to reset, to restore, to work, to ground, to play, to connect, to be. So my question for you is, do you know how to play? Do you remember the freedom that comes when you give yourself permission to do something for no reason, to play? Now, play and work don't have to look different, but they feel different in our heart and our mind space. Play is all about being in the experience. It's a mindfulness exercise. And as children, we probably didn't have to set an intention and schedule a play date. And yet, maybe you did. A lot of us as kids maybe were already overachievers and overcommitted. 1, to keep us out of trouble, or 2, as kind of makeshift activities of childcare while our parents were working. But I want to caution us all from overcommitting to objective-minded tasks, and look for even little windows that we can cultivate play. Now I want to share a little story, and this is a story that I share a lot, but it's one that really helped me shift my idea around play, and that was in a walking meditation. I had just been instructed in formal learning how to do this particular Vipassana style mindfulness mindfulness in motion, or a walking meditation. And the mantra that was introduced was lift, move, place. The idea being that we would lift our foot, move our leg, and then place the foot down again. And that kept our mind and our body in sync, in alignment, so that we could be with the energy required to move us through a maze. Now, I was fortunate enough at the time to be at the Kripalu Institute of Yoga in Massachusetts. And they have this beautiful mandala that's a circular maze that you walk in, right, in this little maze. And then in the center, you can pause and then reverse and walk out the maze. Now, at some point on my journey out, I had walked in, I had paused, all while reciting this mantra of lift, move, place. My current mantra is breathe, move, rest, right? So lift, move, place. Now, on the journey out, this mantra shifted subconsciously, meaning I didn't intend for this to happen from my will state. And I was in this meditation to be present. That was the entirety of the intention. But what came out, what transitioned during that walk out of the maze was the mantra itself. The words fell away from lift, move, place and became let more play. Now, as someone who loves word games, I can see how lift, move, place shifts incrementally to the phrase let more play. But more importantly was kind of that aha moment when I recognized that my mantra had changed. And I stopped again, physically stopped. And I kind of stepped aside of myself, looked at myself, and I said, do you realize what just happened? And I was both proud and excited about the allowing that happened and the epiphany that found me. This is what I mean about showing up for the practice and letting inspiration find us. When we chase inspiration, it tends to play hide and seek. But when we continue the practice of diligently showing up for our practice, of scheduling our self-care in all its forms, again, I teach 10 of them, and if you want to learn them, reach out, we can talk, or maybe you want to explore the Yoga Living program, which dives into integrating those 10 practices into your daily life in order to cultivate more inspiration and joy. Whatever it might be, consider whether or not you are rejecting joy, maybe even foreboding joy because there's always work to be done. Yes, of course there is. But sprinkling in a little joy, sprinkling in a little play, and a little laughter and a little fun is a choice. So, as I wrap up this story time, I want to invite you to consider setting an intention, a mantra, something that is both framed positively, even if it's not ideal, right? Maybe today's a hard day, and so you choose the word, I'm here, right? Singular word or a singular simple sentence is enough, right? Maybe enough is your word. The point being, if ready, or if hopeful, or if ambitious, whatever that word is that kind of speaks from your center, your truth, see if you can be with that with all of your mind, body, and spirit, and ask it what it asks of you. How can you cultivate just a little more space for inspiration to show up, right? Maybe your word is, in fact, a welcoming of play or joy or laughter. How do you play? Now, all month long, I'm going to be talking about play. So if you haven't registered for my weekly newsletter, go to lifesworkyoga.com and sign up so that you get this little sprinkling of inspiration that not only is intended to help you live better, more intimately with inspiration, but also an invitation to connect. Because these two sides of the coin, this personal practice and community connection, this is the heart of yoga. This is the essence of our humanness. Be well, take care of you. May you breathe deeply, move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. Namaste.